the webinar in Indonesian language, then you can choose the interpretation feature. You can find that on the bottom right of your screen. It's under the interpretation sign. And if you see a little globe there, you can click it and you can choose Indonesian language. And then you can listen to the webinar in Indonesian language. Okay, dear participant, my name is Anthony Lee. I'm the political editor of Kompas newspaper in Jakarta, Indonesia. And today I will be moderating today's discussion on the challenge of reporting politics and election in disinformation era. Well, for the past few years, there have been lots of discussion by the political scientists and also public pundits that democracy is not in its best form recently. Democracy is facing regressions or also democratic backsliding. There are several variables contributed to the decline of democracy. The shrinking of civic spaces is one of them. And specific to the context of pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, the Varieties of Democracy Institute, or the FIDEM Institute, in 2021 democratic report measures 7 types of violations that can arguably harm democratic norms. And among other things, restrictions of media freedoms, and also official disinformation campaigns are among the seven measures that were analyzed by the FIDEM Institute. And their finding shows that around 2/3 of 144 countries being studied impose moderate media restrictions, and while 25% engage in some form of disinformation campaigns. And disinformation can lead to misperception on certain issues that can also distort citizens' point of view. In the electoral process, electoral consultation context, disinformation can interfere with citizen decisions, and thus it can also hinder citizens from electing right person to hold public offices. And due to disinformation, public discussion during elections might not be about substantive programmatic politics, but instead about trivial things. And the discussion is not about what platforms the candidate brings and what possible platform they want to offer to make citizens' life better. And it becomes more dangerous when some politicians, instead of fighting disinformation with clarifying it, they choose to fight disinformation with spreading another disinformation. And things goes from bad to worse when the elites also organize cyber troops to amplify the messages and even attack or bully those who express different idea or criticize them. Journalists and journalism can play a pivotal role as a clearinghouse of information, or even to push forward substantive discussion during elections in public spheres. For example, what visions the candidate have in welfare policies, for example. However, it's not uncommon that it's not easy for journalists or journalism to do their job under these situations. It's not uncommon for media house to be constantly delegitimized by some political elites and also buzzers in some of countries. And we can see that from lots of organizations, international organization report, for example, from the Oxford Internet Institute. And that is not only happening in transitional democratic countries, but also even in the already mature democratic societies in the Northern Hemisphere. Disinformation, trolling, doxing toward journalists and media outlets happen in several parts of the world. And taking into account all of those global phenomena in mind, there are several questions emerged. How free are journalists to report politics and elections? And what should media and journalists do to respond to this information challenge? And we have today with us 3 distinguished speakers from 3 different countries in Southeast Asia. We are pleased to welcome Carmela Funguena from the Philippines, and also Yandri Arfian from Indonesia, and Hathairat Paholtap or Wits from Thailand. And we will have around 2 hours to discuss this topic and try to find some lessons learned from all of the three countries' experience in dealing with misinformation during the election time. Each speaker has around 20 minutes to share their thoughts and also to propose some ideas that might be useful for other countries to follow their experiences. And then we will have around 25 minutes for question and answer session, and we will open the Q&A session into 2 batches. Hopefully we will have 2 or 3 questions per batch. But beforehand, if you have questions during the speaker's presentation, you can also write it down on the Q&A features below the speaker screen. And then I will, during the Q&A session, ask you to deliver a question directly, or if you wish, I can also read the question for you. However, before I give the screen to our speakers, we will firstly hear the opening speech delivered by Mbak Eni Mulia, the Executive Director of the Indonesian Association for Media Development, or PPMN. Mbak Eni Mulia founded PPMN, a non-profit organization, in 2006, and beforehand she worked as an award-winning radio journalist and also editor for more than 7 years. Her leadership has enabled PPMN to grow as one of the country's most productive media development organizations that have provided training to more than 2,000 media professionals in Indonesia and also other countries in the region. In September 2015, together with some of Indonesia's investigative journalists, supported by some media and also civil society organizations, she launched Indonesia's first network for investigative journalism, namely Jaring. Mbak Eni, the screen and the mic is yours.
Thank you, moderator. On behalf of the organization, the host of this event, I would like to give a warm welcome to you, all the participants of this webinar and workshop series, Journalism and Democracy in the Age of Pandemic and Disinformation. Our today discussion, the first webinars of this series, is the challenge of reporting politics and election in the disinformation era. When I look at this specific theme, I recall my memories about 3 years ago. I was in a regional discussion forum for media and journalists, and there was a young reporter came and asked the discussion forum. The reporter said it is very challenging these days in reporting elections and politics. Why? Because every politicians, every candidates, and even government officials, now they have their social media accounts. They can promote themselves in their social media, and they also have their armies of buzzers and influencers in social media to control all the informations about the candidates or the politicians. They don't need us, the media and journalists. So what would be the best thing to do in this, to report about politics and elections in this challenge? That questions appeared like, I think it was 3 years ago, before the pandemic strike. And I think all we know that because of the pandemic, it already even worsened the situations. The moderator has said how worse or how bad the situation is about the quality of information right now and the good journalism right now because of the pandemic, which has already strike or even giving more threats to media, which already disrupted by digital and business disruption. So I think, but I think there is one hope that, or one thing that we should keep our faith or our belief that in this time, the good information or the good quality information is even more important than ever before. Good journalism and quality information in this era may save lives and, of course, needed to preserve sustainable democracy. So I think we should not keep silent or just be quiet to look around of this phenomenon. That's why today we start our webinar and workshop series to talk about how we can keep good journalism and quality information in this disinformation era. And we are bringing now 3 speakers from 3 countries. They are from the frontliners in the everyday battle of protecting good journalism and quality information. And we are so proud to have them to speak here. And this is also a regional forum where I think we should learn and share and give solidarity to support each other of these Southeast Asian countries. To what we should do is how to discuss every ideas, every thoughts, every collaboration that may come up for us to be together and save this good journalism and quality information against disinformation. I think I have to say thank you for the speakers for their time to be with us today. And also thanks to Perludem, our partner in the RESPECT program, the Asia Pacific Regional Support for Election and Political Transition, supported by USAID. Without them, I think this event would never happen. And I think I will stop here and I will give the time to the moderator, and I hope you will enjoy today's event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baini, for your insightful opening speech. There are 3 things at least that I think we have to bear in mind when we have discussion based on Baini speech. First is good journalism and quality journalism is needed even more right now. And then solidarity, and also we need not to keep silence. I think that is a very strong message that all of the journalists in the region have to bear in mind. Now we will start our discussion. I will introduce our first speaker, Carmela S. Funguena. Starting from the 1st of January 2021, she worked as the Executive Director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, or PCIG. She has been working as a journalist for 17 years for foreign and local news organization. And in 2007, she received Jaime Ongpin Award for Excellence in Journalism. She has also co-authored 4 books on Philippine elections and government contracting, and she has just launched her new book entitled Marawisich, Stories from the Front Lines. Welcome, Carmela. In 2018, Carmela, I remember that Facebook Public Policy Director for Global Election referred to the Philippines as patient zero of the disinformation in digital platform during elections. The Philippine election in 2016 was a few months ahead of the Brexit and also Trump nomination in presidential US presidential election in 2016. What was happened during that time and how journalists and media house deal with it? The time is yours.
Thank you for that generous introduction, Anthony. Good morning, everyone. Give me a few seconds to share my slide. I think am I able to share remotely? One second. Can you see? Can you see my screen? Okay. I think I tried to share from another source, but that isn't working. Okay. I'll be sharing with you today the Philippine experience with disinformation, focusing on the challenges that journalists have faced and continue to face in covering politics and elections. I divided my presentation into 3 parts. First, I will give you an overview of the information environment in the Philippines because we have today a regional audience. I thought that will be helpful. I will start with the 2016 presidential elections, as Anthony mentioned, and why the Philippines was called patient zero in the weaponization of digital platforms during elections. Second, I will be discussing lessons we have learned from our experience with disinformation And finally, third, I will discuss what we at the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism are doing to help fight disinformation and how we are preparing for another very important presidential elections next year. Okay, the Philippines was called patient zero in the weaponization of digital platforms during elections. If we recall, President Duterte won the presidential elections in 2016, and it was dubbed the country's first social media elections because many believe that social media won Duterte the elections. Based on data from Facebook, 17.9 million people globally engaged in conversations related to the Philippine elections for around 7 months or so before the elections. And there were about 176 million interactions in terms of likes, posts, comments. So these numbers are huge, considering there are over 50 million voters in the Philippines. And there was no question that Duterte won convincingly in the 2016 elections. But 2 years after the 2016 elections, what did we learn? We learned that, again, Philippines was patient zero in the weaponization of digital platforms during the elections. What does it mean to be patient zero? It means the Philippines was the first to become infected with this illness of disinformation. And this was Facebook Policy Director for Global Elections, Katie Harbath, said this in 2018. That's 2 years after the elections. She said she agreed 100% that the Philippines was patient zero because the presidential elections that Duterte won in May 2016 preceded the Brexit vote in the UK, which happened later in June 2016, and the US presidential elections that Donald Trump won in November 2016. So these 3 elections were characterized by massive disinformation employed by the supporters of the winning parties, which we came to understand only later. For example, what were the disinformation that were peddled during the 2016 elections? There was a lot, but among the posts that circulated, for example, claimed that the Pope endorsed Duterte, for example. There were also world leaders and celebrities who supposedly endorsed him, such as Angelina Jolie and the Queen and Queen Elizabeth. There was even a claim that Duterte was the inspiration of Lee Kuan Yew for Singapore's success, which can be funny for us because it's obviously false, but it's unfortunate how people can be misled and have been misled. The truth is, in 2016, we knew this information was a problem, but we didn't immediately understand the extent of the problem. Later on, we will have Facebook take down accounts linked to Duterte's former social media strategists. Okay, so the Philippines serves the Philippine president served for 6 years. We had another elections in 2019, and that's the midterm elections where we elected senators and local officials. Just 2 months after the midterm elections, this is the one. 2 months before the elections, Facebook took down hundreds of accounts linked to President Duterte's former social media strategies. And this was because of inauthentic coordinated behavior. Of course, the administration protested this, but he was said to have been associated with about 200 profiles and pages linked to misleading behavior and fake accounts. Despite that, we were still unable, unfortunately, to effectively fight disinformation in 2019. In fact, disinformation worsened during the midterm elections based on the study that looked into the networks of disinformation. So it's not just one camp employing disinformation anymore. It's all the parties learning from 2016 and employing the same to win elections. The study also found that common narratives of disinformation were historical revisionism and mistrust on the mainstream media. I'd like to discuss this mistrust on mainstream media further later. That's 2019. And the problem continues. Last year, it's the year of the pandemic, we learned that like the rest of the world, the Philippines grappled with online disinformation that undermined responses to the pandemic. But there was also another development last year that makes certain camps, including the media, but particularly progressive groups and the opposition, nervous about the coming elections. It's when Facebook took down accounts, more accounts, over inauthentic coordinated behavior And among the accounts that were taken down were owned by security officials. And this was the time when progressive groups have been protesting military and police harassment because they have been alleged to be members of communist groups and alleged to be terrorists. So red tagging has been a big problem in the Philippines, and human rights organizations have linked a lot of extrajudicial killings to red tagging. And of course, it's not a secret that the military does not want progressive groups in Congress. So there's a lot of progressive groups that want seats in Congress. So this, okay. And then very briefly, I would like to talk about current information environment in the Philippines, that really the problem doesn't end. These are banner stories of the Philippine Daily Inquirer, a leading newspaper in the country. And these banner stories reflect the biggest political news on TV, radio, print, and online media these days. It's about the ongoing Senate investigation into alleged corruption in the Duterte government's COVID-19 response. This investigation was triggered by a report of the Commission on Audit, which is an independent government body showing irregularities in government spending. As you can see in the headlines, the issue at hand is how a small company, a new company in fact, won multi-billion peso contracts for the government's medical supplies during the pandemic. So if this is the big story in mainstream media, what about netizens? What are the Filipinos talking about on social media? I scanned Rappler.com. I used to be a senior reporter also for Rappler.com before I joined PCIJ this year. I have here some of the false claims that Rappler has documented in the past month, around the same time that the Senate investigation started. These are all false claims on social media. You will see here efforts to discredit the report of the Commission on Audit, which is the basis of the Senate investigation. There are also posts, for example, that seek to dismiss the audit report by accusing the chairman of the commission of malicious intent, that he was out to defame Duterte. Again, there are also posts that make allegations of media bias. This is a recurring theme, suggesting that the media favors the opposition leader. There is certainly a lot of interest in the Senate investigation, and that is reflected in the posts that we see online. But there are also a lot of online posts about topics that are outside Senate investigation, including those that promote potential candidates in the coming elections. And we see here posts about, we see here that they have monitored posts, false posts about Manny Pacquiao and Bongbong Marcos. Manny Pacquiao, we know him as a popular boxer, and Bongbong Marcos is the son and namesake of former Philippine dictator Ferdinand Marcos. And of course, you still have the usual lies about the COVID-19 and the pandemic. So what this really shows us is continuously, there's really a lot of issues that compete for public attention. And that's a big challenge for us in the media, in fulfilling our role to inform the voters. Before the advent of social media, mainstream media has generally set the national agenda, right? And the headlines determined what people talked about and established common facts so we can debate about national issues. So not anymore. So we go now to, before I talk about how we're preparing for the 2022 elections, I want to talk briefly about the lessons we've learned in fighting disinformation. It's really an important elections, obviously, because if we're unable to fight disinformation effectively, it means that the media, that we again will fail in our responsibility to inform the voters. We learned that from our previous speakers that disinformation kills, right? And if anything, that's what the pandemic taught us. How many people who died would be alive today if they believed in vaccines, for example, and how many people who died would be alive if they had better local officials, for example, who knew how to lead during a health crisis. They know how to make sure that the hospitals are ready, or they know how to implement lockdowns. And really, that's the lesson for us. The study I cited earlier about narratives of disinformation had very specific recommendations in fighting disinformation. And I want to focus here on, there were 4: campaign finance, platform bans, fact checks, and industry regulation. But I want to focus on fact checking and campaign finance because these are what the Philippine media have been doing. I showed you fact check reports from Rappler. Verifiles is also one of those organizations that does fact checks in the Philippines. This takes a lot of effort, you know, and PCIJ doesn't have the power to do daily fact checking. What we do at PCIJ is investigative journalism, and our reports are published by other news organizations. Investigative journalism is our contribution in fighting disinformation, especially when we inform the public about corruption in government and corruption committed by the candidates. Okay, but specifically during elections, what we focus on is reporting on campaign finance. Campaign finance reporting, as has always been, and we see in the recommendations, and this is a repeated conclusion in many studies, that campaign finance is really important in fighting disinformation. Campaign finance reporting has always been our focus. And we always say at PCIJ that campaign finance is important, but it's probably the most important aspect of any electoral exercise, because in the Philippines, many candidates spend so much of their money to run for elections and convince the people that they are worthy of the public trust. So it's important for the media to report on campaign finance. Because how they spend their money also have implications beyond election day. In fact, 2 of President Duterte's campaign donors were appointed cabinet secretaries. Longtime advocates of campaign finance reform also see the value of campaign finance beyond the context of elections. It is an anti-corruption and good governance activity more than it is an election activity. So this has been the focus of PCIJ. We're also a part of a coalition of election watchdogs, freedom of information advocates, and media groups that have brought campaign finance on the election agenda. I want to recall the year 2007, which was particularly important for PCIJ's efforts in monitoring campaign finance, because this was the year that PCIJ joined a coalition of civil society organizations called Pera at Politica, and this is Filipino for Money and Politics. The coalition reviewed how and why candidates spend huge sums of money to get elected. And with the support of the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, the network was able to follow the money in the succeeding elections, the 2010 presidential elections, during which time the coalition also held public events to highlight the huge advertising spending by candidates and tackle various election issues. Facebook was still very new in the Philippines then, of course, that was 2010. Campaign finance reporting was more straightforward. We monitored how much they spent on advertising, on mainstream media mostly, which we can monitor during the campaign. After the elections, we also looked into the expenditure reports that the candidates filed. Social media obviously is now a different ballgame. That's the big challenge for us. But it's very important for media to monitor online spending, precisely because of its growing role in the campaigns. At PCIJ, we started our monitoring of social media spending in May, which marks 1 year before the elections in 2022. Fortunately, Facebook has begun to monitor ad spending on the platform, and the data is publicly available through the ad library. This Facebook tool, which records how much candidates have paid to advertise on Facebook, will be helpful in making election spending transparent. But we note that many other platforms, such as YouTube, will remain a challenge. And based on our reporting, we have received information from our readers that candidates have been using other social media platforms to advertise. So, and then there's also the other challenge for us is how candidates have used influencers in campaigns. And obviously this post will not be captured in the ad library because the candidates pay the influencers and not Facebook. So that will be a huge challenge, but we're thinking of ways, collaborating with organizations so that we can also look into this. Apart from producing investigative journalism, the other mission of PCIJ is to train journalists on investigative journalism and on data journalism. And we do have a partnership with PPMN. Trainings have been challenging because of the pandemic. We do everything virtually, and workshops have been difficult to do. But we have been learning along the way how to make virtual trainings more engaging. We just concluded another training for journalists who will cover the 2022 elections. And it's been very helpful. It received really good feedback. Our journalists basically were reminded of their role to inform voters. One of our resource speakers, a veteran journalist, cautioned the trainees against fluff pieces. For example, the elections is so important that we have to make sure that each report we publish actually contribute in informing the voters. And he asked them to ask this question every time they write their stories: is this information useful when they go to the precincts to cast their votes? So that's really important, that we really have to take seriously our media's role in informing the electorate. And yes, we also teach them about campaign finance. We introduce them to documents that they can tap to understand how money basically rules campaigns, because obviously if they don't have money, right, they cannot launch campaigns, pay for ads, pay for influencers. So we also teach them to look into government contracts, so they are able to scrutinize the candidates. For example, we will be publishing later today one of the stories of our trainees from another training on probing corruption, and it will look into the COVID spending of a city in the Visayas. Reporters, we have more stories coming out next month, which looks into the other LGU responses on COVID-19. And then another thing that's important that we have been doing, fighting this disinformation, is collaboration. We've always done this every elections. We'll do it again in the coming election, collaborate with other news organizations. So we continue to train, aside from training them, we work on them to publish investigative reports. We also share with them our rich data, for example, on the statement of assets and liabilities and net worth of candidates. And it's unfortunate that the government has restricted access to this science, but fortunately for PCIJ, we have always requested for these documents, so we have good historical data. We may not have the new ones, the declarations in recent years, but we have their declarations, for example, from when they were mayors or governors. Finally, I'd like to talk about a pledge that the Philippine media came up with in July. We realized that the challenges are big and important, and then the coming elections is really important. And we say that as journalists reporting on another critical moment for our country, we have a duty to provide accurate, reliable, and essential information that will empower voters and encourage public discussion and debate. So it's really a wonderful piece of document where we outline how we'll take government agencies to account, how we will not amplify hate speech during the campaign, for example, and how we will report on campaign finance, among others. And together, we really hope to make a huge impact in the next year's elections, and we hope that we will be able to fight disinformation better. Thank you very much. If there are topics you are interested in, there are other topics I didn't cover here, but maybe I could talk about in the Q&A. Let me know, and I'll be happy to expound on them.
So, thank you so much, Carmela, for your wonderful presentation. There are, of course, lots of important things that I think we can take from Carmela's presentation. Well, the challenge is not easy right now to set national agenda with a lot of issues happening in public spheres, including the misinformation happens. But during election, it's really important to focus on, among other things, for example, reporting campaign finance and also fact checking. Collaboration is also important things. But I think reporting campaign finance is something that we really have to dig in other in other countries as well. Thank you so much, Carmela, for the presentation. And then now we move to our second speaker. We have Yandri Arfian. Yandri has started his duty as executive editor of Tempo in July 2021. He was involved in several global investigative collaboration projects, such as Panama Paper in 2016 and Vincent Files in 2020. He has also received several awards, namely Adiwarta Award 2014 for investigative report category, and Australian Award Scholarship in 2012, Mukhtar Lubis Award in 2011 for investigative report category as well, and Jefferson Fellowship in 2009. Yandri has also written several books and reports, among other, some of them are the authorized biography of Agus Martowardoyo, the former governor of Indonesia Central Bank in 2019, and E-commerce Indonesia, Market Structure and Foreign Investment, a report of Indonesia Central Bank's research in 2018. Welcome, Mas Yandri. Mas Yandri, as we know that disinformation, the polarization can be fertile ground for the spread of disinformation. And that was what happening in Indonesia during 2014 and 2019 presidential election. Disinformation to some extent become part of citizen everyday life. And I was wondering, what challenge did you or media house in Indonesia in general face to report election in that situation? And what lesson learned that we can take from the past to political events in order to prevent, or at least to minimize it in the future? The time is yours, Mas Yandri.
Thank you, Anthony, for the introduction. So good morning, everyone. So my name is Yandri Arfian. It's an honor for me to be here to share about Tempo experience in reporting politics and election in this information era. So, okay. Yes, next slide, please. Yeah, so my presentation basically will be divided into 6 parts. And first, I'm going to talk about what happened in the president election 2014. And second, about how Tempo start to debunk hoax and fake news. Then I will share about Jakarta gubernatorial election in 2017. And after that, I'm going to touch a little bit about the collaboration between online media in Indonesia to establish fact-checking. Then I'm going to talk about what happened during the president election 2019. And finally, it's about lesson learned and what's next to overcome hoax and disinformation in Indonesia. So let's begin with the president election 2014. So as you can see on the slide, hoax and violence spiked on social media during the president election at the time. And due to increasing political polarizations, and hoax and fake news were used, not only for mobilizing the voters, but also for legitimating political powers. Unfortunately, reporters at the time are unprepared for the flood of the fake news and that swept across social media. And both supporters, candidates produce hoax and disinformation, and they use multi-contact information, which means that a single news item was used in many contexts. Political gain, this technique usually manipulates fact by using past issues for constructing a new fact. Then I will discuss why are hoax easy to spread in Indonesia. If we look at the Indonesia digital system, internet penetration rate accounted for 64%, and 59% of population are active social media user, and 90% of them using mobile device. And the most used social media platform are YouTube, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and also Twitter. So that's why social media then become the major arena of the disinformation. The central problem is digital literacy among Indonesia population is still low. So people are likely to take as credible whatever content is endorsed by their social network, and which corresponds with their hearts without checking is it true or not. So they read hoax and believe them to be true. And I think spreading the fake news in this sense is usually free, meaning that people who cannot afford to pay for quality journalism or who lack access to independent public service news media are especially vulnerable to both disinformation and misinformation. So I think this is one of the challenges faced by media, not only for Tempo, but also for other independent media in other countries. And another problem is the quality of journalism. In the context of Indonesia, the capacity or the capability of media, especially who are located in remote areas or far from Jakarta, are not equal. They don't able to filter hoax and disinformation coming from the candidates or supporters. And the declining of journalism's quality in Indonesia also triggered by the media ownership or conglomeration, which concentrated in hands of few, and most of them are tycoons who have close relationship with the power. And due to increasing political polarizations, the media outlets owned by conglomerates were trapped to support particular candidates. These media outlets are contributed also to disseminate hoax and disinformations. So I will give you an example. In 2014, during the president election at the time, one of TV station in Indonesia is called TV1, treated the losing candidate as if he had won and produced fake polls to back its claim. This is an example how media become biased in reporting election. So behavior of media owner to intervene the newsroom contradicts to the spirit of independent media in democratic society. So I think this phenomenon lead to declining trust in media as well. So that's why trust in professional journalism is quite low in Indonesia. Next, please. So let's move on to the next slide. So how did Tempo start to debunk hoax and fake news? At first, we didn't realize at the time the scope of this phenomenon and only devoted a tiny fraction of resources in our newsroom to cover it. But since early 2016, we had a special channel to debunk hoax and our news site. But at the time, we only debunk hoax that are related to the news and current affairs. So not every piece of information that become viral on social media. Next. So after that, we published a cover story about hoax in early 2017. So the reason why we published this story because the numbers of hoax and its impact seems to be to get more noticeable with the proliferation of social media, so Facebook, Twitter, profile, all platforms for everybody to share their opinion, but not enough tools. Not enough tools to verify every bit of information being shared and discussed. So as you can see here on the slide, the Jakarta police at the time received more than thousands complaints from the public over hoax, fake news, and character defamations. How do they work? So they hide behind anonymous account where the owner's identities remain unclear. So they also use robot accounts to spread hoax and fake news. So now turning to what happened in Jakarta Gubernatorial election in 2017. So things changed when election came and hoax became more visible and dangerous. So according to Mavindo, nearly thousands reports have been confirmed as hoaxes. And religious issue played a big role as one candidate, Basuki Cahayapurnama, or usually called Ahok, is coming from a Christian and Chinese ethnic minority. Even Tempo became a victim of hoax. People use our trusted brand to spread rumors and lies, as you can see here on the slide, on the right slide. The picture on this slide depicts that how hoax creator use Tempo newspaper logo or headline to disseminate fake news. And as you can see also here, while the right image is the original one. So this is the fact that journalists or media can be manipulated by actors who go beyond the ethics of the public relation by attempting to mislead or corrupt journalists into spreading disinformation. This could undermine public trust in media. Next slide, please. So this is just an illustration of how we did a special Jakarta election coverage in 2019. Next. So talking about the fact checking, so within the special election coverage in 2017, we include a channel solely dedicated to debunk any hoax made by candidates during the elections. As you can see here, during the election, our fact checking team produced fact check posts in daily basis. So now what about the structure? Next, please. Yes. So basically, we include the source of the statement or claim that being checked, the fact after we check, and the reference or the basis for our facts. So you can see on this slide, red circle relates to the claim, and the green circle about the facts, and the yellow circle shows the reference that we put on the article. Next, please. During the debate, so we did a live fact-checking supported by 15 reporters on the spot. We check every claim made by candidates and publish our fact-checking via Facebook or Twitter. So I think this is one evidence on how fake news and disinformation have changed the newsroom operation in our newsroom, especially to overcome challenges coming from the spreading of false or misleading information. Now I will show you the example of the result. So from the live fact checking, as you can see here in the picture, usually we show the quotation or the claim from the candidates, and also we put the facts related to the claims. Let's move on to the check fakta or check fakta tempo or tempo fact check. So the event of Jakarta Gubernatorial election 2017 gave us an idea how to create a check fakta in our newsroom, which is called a check fakta tempo. This channel is managed by a number of reporters and fact checkers who have participated in verification and fact checking methods, training held by the Google News Initiative in collaboration with the Alliance of Independent Journalists or AJ. So to be more engaged with our audience, we also invite readers to report hoax or claims which have doubtful accuracy by filling out the form. And to have the editor choose the claims to be examined, we also collaborate with the Indonesian Anti-Defamation Society or MAFINDO, which manages our fact-checking site and fact-checking page on social media. The reason why we collaborate with MAFINDO because we want to produce an integrated hoax database to facilitate joint verification effort. Then we realized that, we cannot work alone. We need to collaborate with other media to make the anti-movement is getting bigger, especially to more engage with the broader audience or readers. So the background of the collaboration is the fake news and disinformation, of course, have influenced public opinion in Indonesia. And most of the online media try to debunk hoax, but unfortunately, they are still doing it individually. And outside the media, organizations that are actively doing fact-checking is MAFINDO via online communities on social media, and they have also their own website, data.turnbackhoax.id. AJ has initiated training on various fact-checking tools in collaboration with Google's Internews and also First Draft News. So we thought that if all these powers are combined, a hoax deterrent system will be born, and which is expected to be quite effective in filtering public conversation from these informations. Next slide, please. This is just an example in other countries, which is from France. The journalists or the media in the country also has collaboration, which is called cross-check. Next, please. Yes, if you look at more detail, it was started actually in February 2017 as a collaboration of 37 online media. Its main objective is to counteract claims and hoax about candidates in French presidential elections so that public gets the most accurate information about the competing candidates. So the public can send hoax they want to check, and the media will then independently verify it. So the result of which are then combined on the cross-check website. So what is the lesson learned from the cross-check experience? The collaboration of mainstream online media that works together to verify hoax has proven to be effective in preventing the invasion of the fake news. And the strength of fact-checker lies in its independence, transparency, and ability to work quickly to test the accuracy of information. The use of technology effectively reached a broader audience, but there needs to be complete with the database support. So the success of the cross-check gave us an inspiration to create a Fact Check Indonesia. It's called Check Fakta. So this is a collaborative fact-checking project, consists of several online media who are members of Alliance of Independent Journalists in Indonesia and also AMSI, Indonesia Cyber Media Association, which supported by Google also and Internews and First Draft. And the project actually was first launched around 2018 after the signing of the MAU by 22 chief editors of online media and the chairman of Mafindo. But the beginning story of the Check Fakta eventually started in 2017. So after the Indonesian Cyber Media Association was created in 2017, there have been discussion about a joint fact-checking initiative at the time. Then the Google News Lab in Asia Pacific offered to help, so the fact-check news made by the media in Indonesia could be easily found on the Google search. And also in early 2018, IG began holding fact-checking training supported by the Google News Initiative Internews with the First Draft News module. So what are the basic principles of the checkfakta.com? First, we need to be non-partisan and fair, be open about the source used to check fact, then be open and honest about our funding and organization, be transparent about our methods and how we work, and of course, ready to correct errors immediately and responsibly. Next slide, please. So what is the advantage from our collaboration? We found that the credibility and the competence of the newsroom of online media members make the verification result of hoax more trusted by the public. Expert programmers at Mafindo make collaboration easier with various platforms and database available at Mafindo. And the third one is that the Google and First Draft News support in terms of technology and anti-hoax model. So let me move on to what happened in presidential election 2019. So during the presidential election 2019, the spread of fake news and disinformation has spiked weeks before the vote. According to Mafindo, there was more than thousands hoax since August 2018 and until March 2019. And ethnicity and religion are common topics of the hoax. Both political candidates and election institutions such as General Election Commissions of Indonesia (KPU) were being targeted of hoax. What happened at the time? Both candidates were funding social media operation to spread propaganda and disinformation through fake accounts on behalf of the candidates. So the purpose of the hoax and disinformation is to delegitimize the election process, so people tend not to trust the result. One example of this phenomenon was the rumors about the millions of marked ballot papers sent from China being stored at the Jakarta port. So I think the targeting of the KPU is a serious problem, as public trust in the election commission is crucial to proper democratic functioning in Indonesia. Another major concern is the phenomenon of the buzzer and also the influencer. The buzzer is several trolls who are paid to share and amplify hoax using fake social media accounts. So not only targeted the candidates and also the electoral body, there's evidence that journalists also were being targeted by buzzers. So journalists becoming a target of lies, rumors, and hoax, which designed to intimidate and discredit their journalism work, especially when their work threatens to expose those who are committing disinformation. So I think, in my opinion, this could threat press freedom and democracy in Indonesia. So now turning to next slide. So this is an example how we work together as an effort to fight back hoax. So we did live fact checking 2019 during the debates. So as you can see here, we that normally compete each other during the election, then we work together to check the fact. We send, in terms of the tempo's context, we send one fact checker to the war room at Google office, then the rest of the team were in Tempo office, and Check Fakta Tempo were supported by our political reporters. So during the debate, Check Fakta attempted to verify candidates' comments or claim in real time, allegations about corruption, statistics about Muslim population, and even personal anecdotes. So the fact check results are then processed into article to be published in online media and also published on Check Fakta website. Then Cek Fakta social media team also disseminates articles so that the public can access them. And I think the interesting part is during the live fact checking, the fact checkers were also supported by experts regarding to the topics of the debate, such as expert in public health, education, and politics. And besides in Jakarta, fact checkers who are member of AMC also work from 15 cities. So beside that, the fact checking team also examined hundreds of claims circulating on social media with keyword related to integrity, credibility of the election body during the election campaigns. So what is the lesson learned from that all experiences? First, media should play a larger role in fact-checking and debunking hoax and disinformation. The second, all viral hoax should be debunked, not only the one related to the news. So one hoax spread without fact is too many. Then we need to develop a way to engage with audience so hoax can be reported to the media and fact-check. And fact-checking is most crucial during the election so people can vote with confidence and firm understanding of each candidate profile and records. And the most important thing is keep the election fact checking fair and balanced for all candidates. So don't let fact checking become a political tools all against any candidates. So what next to overcome all these challenges? I think at individual level, journalists must be aware and more responsive to fight back against disinformation. So from our experience in Tempo Newsroom, regular evaluation class for reporter and editor play significant role in maintaining and improving standard of journalism, including to detect hoax and disinformation by conducting verification process. So one of the purpose of this evaluation class is also to keep reporters unbiased in reporting election during the election campaigns. The second one is we need more fact checkers in our newsroom. At the moment, our Cek Fakta Tempo teams only consists of 6 staff. In our case, we publish 3 articles per day to debunk hoax and disinformation. And from 3 articles, 1 topic is published in Instagram. So the need for having more fact checkers are not only for national level media, but also for the local media. That's why hoax verification and fact checking training should involve the local press. Why? Because the local media are often trapped in being part of the political contestation arena during local election or pilkada. So another point is we need to winning back trust from audience by producing more investigative reporting products, and collaboration at national and regional networks will be a crucial element. Based on our experiences from 2016, for example, Tempo has started an initiative to involve reporters from local media by collaborating investigating project based on fellow or participant proposal. The purpose of this initiative is to improve investigating skill of reporters who work for local media. We also believe the local issue remain essential to enhance democratic process at the local level. And at the regional level, we also have had experience doing collaboration project with the reporter from Taiwan and also Malaysia kini. So I think we need to increase cross-border collaboration project with the regional network as we live close by, so we can share common issue for collaboration projects such as international crime topics like human trafficking, people smuggler, illegal fishing, or taxing illicit transaction. From what our experience, there are many benefits from this collaboration, such as sharing knowledge in reporting skill and doing analysis. So that's why we need more cross-border collaboration project. I think that's bring us to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your time, and I will hand over to Anthony. Please, Anthony. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mas Andri, for your insightful presentation. And there's something that I think we can take from Mas Andri. The first is that it's really important that media house play a role in fact checking, and while doing so, there must be some kind of values that have to be fulfilled. And other things, engagement with the audience, really important. And secondly, collaboration. Not only you don't only do fact checking by yourself, your media house, but also engaging with, for example, organizations and also other media house. Thank you so much, Mas Andri. And now we have our third speaker. Welcome. I will call you with so that it's easier for me to present you. We have with Hathairot Pahotrap, our third speaker. She is the Thai editor of the Isan Record website. She has been doing journalism since 2002, working for different media houses and also different media platforms, from newspaper and to broadcasting media. In 2012, Wiz received a media award from Amnesty International Thailand for her documentary work aired on Thai PBS. The investigative program uncovered the violence in southern Thailand. In 2018, she received the Outstanding Human Rights Defenders Award from the National Human Rights Commission of Thailand. Which after the 2014 coup in Thailand, Reporter Without Borders classified Thai press freedom as difficult situation. Several laws are limiting journalist freedom to do their obligation to the public. And could you share your experience in reporting politics and 2019 election in Thailand under that condition? The time is yours, please.
Everyone. Good morning from Thailand. I would say this land is used to be a land of smile, but this era is a land of fear. I would like to give you the situation after like three periods. The first one is the situation in Thailand after the coup 2014. The second one is the situation after the election 2019, and the third one is the situation after the pandemic in February 2020. So it's just three periods, but you know they are related together. I would say misinformation, freedom of people, and freedom of media are quite the same thing in when we talk about like this information. So so next please. So next slide please. I would like to give the situation about the media and disinformation in Thailand since 2014 after the coup. So I just know last week that the army put me as the editor of the Isan Records, which is the alternative media based in the northeast. This place is close to Laos border. It's not like it's quite far away from the central, far away from Bangkok. So we are not stream media. We are alternative media. They put me on the list, on the watch list of the army. So it's after I know that during the distrust debate to Prime Minister and some minister last week in Bangkok. So it's make the situation of press or the freedom of press quite limited. Like maybe until now. I mean since the coup until now. So in the red circle is me on the list of the army. So next please. So if you have been following the situation in Thailand, you will see that we are under the junta since 2014, and then it means they took over our country, and then by weapons and military. So this the background of soldier is the week of the democracy monument. So it's mean like the soldier everywhere. Next please. So the situation after the coup happened, the military the junta shut down like mainstream media, especially television, including my previous TV station as well, which is called Thai PBS. They shut them down for Thai PBS. They shut us down for 24 hours. For other organizations, they shut down for seven days, which means people didn't have access to watch TV or like get access to understand the situation after the military took over the country. After that, the NCPO is I would say this NCPO is the junta military released at least three orders to control the media, like in the newsroom at that time at Thai PBS. We could not criticize the junta. We could not criticize. We just after we got back on normal way. It's kind of not normal way, because at that time military sent the junta sent military came to our newsroom to monitor us. Also, everywhere in the building there were a lot of junta. There were a lot of military. This, at that time, it put pressure to our reporting a lot. We could not do our what is called like a talk show that criticized the government. At that time, not the government yet, just a group of military took over the country. So we could not criticize them. We just run something to entertain people, like and then the junta just released propaganda to people, and after since they set up the government, they try to give us some space to report story what's going on, but but at that time, some people who criticized the junta need to put in jail or get attitude adjustment. In the photo is Piprawit Rojanapruk. He at the time he was a senior journalist at the Nation newspaper. He put the plastic tape on his mouth at the army. At the army's side a long time ago, 7 years ago. So after that, the military took him to an army camp to do attitude adjustment, like put him in a small room, no windows, no just one bed, and try to encourage him to think like the junta ways. So there were some journalists went to army base, but not including me. At that time, my boss told me that I shouldn't criticize the junta, but I didn't listen to them. I just feel like, okay, I need to do my job, but later on I know they put me on the list of the army. So and after that, the military always intimidate the media, through their bosses, as I say, including me. But I didn't feel like I need to follow them, because of Thai PBS got the budget from the people to from tax. I think I need to be respect to the people who pay tax for me at that time. So next slide, please. One other reasons that make people make Thai people got scared and like less using their freedom, and also the Thai media doesn't do that job because like the NCPO, the junta use strong laws to control the freedom. Like if we look back to since 2014 to 2020, 2020, which means last year, we will see the number of people who got arrested by like a anti the government. So you will see 276 like got arrested by NCPO using their order, and 428 got arrested because of like the emergency law. So next slide, please. So I would say during the election 2019, the media could not report like freely because it was a transition between working under the junta and like try to beyond the junta. But you know, at that time the junta still using their weapons or using their, you know, their thingy. For example, they have operation information operation team to block opposition party, which called IO. So like it makes the election was not fair enough, because you know, when the opposition party members try to do something to criticize the government at that time, they will sue them or arrest them or do other things that make them weak. So moreover, before the election, the government, the junta government released the constitution that they're written by themselves. So which means like the rule of the election making by them, and the budget still was still in their hands at the time. And moreover, the NCPO try to interfere, or we call monkey with the election calculating. So it's try to interfere with the number of seat with member of parliament. And moreover, they chosen 250 of senators to support the junta government. So it's not fair, right? The rule is not fair in the beginning of the election. And after that, the NCPO, the junta still have some law to control the media. And at that time, during the election, they didn't allow so many international organizations to observe the election. What does it mean? Which mean like they got scared, like outsider gonna catch them, because there were a lot of corruption at that time, if you will look back. So like is, you know, it at that time the junta government try to use fake news and like try to block people who against them, like including local people, like activists in other provinces. So which mean like no one's against them at that time. Next, please. So the freedom of people, the freedom of media have been controlled by the junta government. Even 2019, we have the elected government, but they still use the same style, like which mean like military style. So after the pandemic in February or March, they released an emergency decree to control the media. Like, and the interesting is that one sentence of the order said that people, including citizen reporter or journalists, shouldn't criticize national security. What happened to that? Because at that time, so many new generations or younger people were criticize the government and gathering together and like do demonstration, because like since the coup happened, they have never have a chance to gathering together because they have strong law to control, not allow people, more than 5 people gathering together, which means we cannot like participate more than 5 people. But after the election, it seemed like they feel they have they feel their atmosphere of freedom. Then they gathering together, but the government used this law, emergency law, by like try to explain, oh, this time is a pandemic. Is the pandemic, you shouldn't gathering together. But in fact, they want to control the demonstration. So at that time, like there were so many students got arrested in like especially in Khon Kaen, the town that I'm living here. So and after that, in their third wave, since April this year, they use the same law, emergency law, and use the same sentence that, oh, citizen reporter, especially people who use social media, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, should not criticize or interfere or get involved with national security. National security meaning that don't interfere with like the democracy, don't like criticize the government. So my point is, they use the same thing, the same reason to explain different situation. So next slide, please. And more than that, and after the coup happened in 2014, one thing that control the people, the Thai people, and also control the media is Section 112. I'm not sure if when I finish this panel, I will get arrested or not, because I like monarchy issue and Article 112 is forbidden in our country to talk. But you know, as Annie said, like if we want to have more freedom, we shouldn't be silent, right? I think it's worth that if I talk out loud and criticize the government and criticize the monarchy, and they arrest me and put me in jail, it's worth it. So the Article 112, what does it mean? So this law is put in the Crime Act. This one sentence, which mean like if you criticize the king, the queen, the heir appearance or religion, you will people can report your behavior and they will put you in jail for 3 to 15 years per count, which means just per case. Like in like last year, one student got sentenced and put in jail for 70 years, and another lady who like got retired, she criticized the monarchy. Then they sentenced her to put in jail 100 years. So next, please. I would say the Article 112 made people got scared, and they use Article 112 to threaten people, to like what should I call, to I forget the word. So like try to use this article to punish people who are thinking different from the government or the monarchy. So if you look at the slide, you will see the number of people who got arrested by this law. You know, since the coup happened to October last year, some 106 people got arrested, and some put in jail. Now they're still in jail, and 63 people like use the name or the name of the member of royal to do corruption things. Then they put in jail as well. So I try to explain that this law make people scared to use their freedom, or because as you know, the royal family and the government are related together, which call democracy which call the democratic monarchy. So next, please. So but since last year, around October, that was the nightmare of new generation, because the governments announced to use the law stronger. I mean the Article 112 and emergency law, or for curfew. They used like quite strong weapon that they have to arrest people, and try to like, and also use violence to the some demonstration as well. So next, please. This is the number of new generation who got arrested since November, since 24th of November last year until now. There were 127 people have arrested by this law after they came out to call for freedom. They got arrested, and then at the same time the media could not like report freely, because they used strong law to control us, like especially face the alternative media. Next, please. So I try to figure it out how we deal with this situation in Thailand, because you know, when we talk about disinformation, freedom, election, or politics or democracy are related together. But whenever any country have military like dealing with politics or democracy, it's not democratic. It's not democracy anymore, like Thailand or Myanmar. One thing that I have been thinking to find the way out for Thai media working during the pandemic and working in the junta period. I have no idea. I just try to tell my staff that we should be good journalists, be more brave. And one thing that we always ask to the Thai Media Association to support the media who work hard or try to criticize the government. But it never happened because for example, my organization, we are a small media outlet, and we working in far away from the central, from the capital. It seems like we are living in nowhere. So, but the thing is, after I got attacked by fake news or information operation of the army, I told my team that don't give up. Like, even they gonna put us in jail, or they gonna arrest us, or they gonna disappear us, just keep fighting. I think that's all for my slide this morning. So thank you for everyone to listen my presentation. If you have any questions, you can ask me later on Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Riz. It's really the condition is not very good for journalists in Thailand, because political challenges will happen. The Lesemaya state that make not only journalists but citizens cannot criticize the monarchy, and then the military regime that even not allowing you to criticize national security, or even cannot report elections. That, I think this is a very strong message that you also share to us, that even though that the condition is not good, it's dangerous even to journalists to do their obligation to the public, but still we cannot give up, and we have to fight until it hurt. And even if it hurt, then you still also should keep fighting. Thank you so much, Riz. That is all the presentation from all of our three speakers. Now we move to the question and answer session. We already have two questions here from Nugroho Notosutanto and also from Deborah Snabela. Nugroho, do you want to ask your question directly to the speakers, or do you want me to just read it? Can the committee help give permission to Nugroho maybe to speak?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. Yeah, you can ask your question directly.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Anthony. I'm Nugroho Noto Susanto. I'm a commissioner of Regional Election Commission in Province Riau. Based on the speaker already talked before, I just want to know about how the comparison between nation state in Southeast Asia in addressing deregulation or law enforcement in combating hoax productions. Based on Agus Sudibyo is the member of Pers, Dewan Pers in Indonesia. He wrote two books I already read. Jagat Digital and Tarung Digital. Based on his book, the root problem in hoax distribution in the world is by structural analysis. There is actor or subject who produce the hoax or fake news to get how to say vote, yeah, from the voter in election context. And my question is how the Southeast Asia states implemented the law or regulations to prevent and also to combat the hoax process from the producer especially and then until to the consumer or distributor. I think that is my question, Mr. Anthony. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pak Nugroho. Before we move to the second question, because the second question is directly specified to be answered by Carmela, then we will, I think I'll give the floor to all of the three speakers, but firstly from Wiz probably to give a comment on that, and then we move to the other speaker. Wiz, please.
Can you repeat the questions again?
The question is whether do you think that the regulations on preventing hoax or disinformation is enough, and what is the practice in your respective country?
The information that enough, right?
Yeah. Whether there is a law that can prevent or even can sanction on those who deliver or distribute and also produce disinformation or hoaxes.
Okay, I got it. So I don't know how to explain this because since I moved moved out from Bangkok, I didn't have I didn't have association of press or media to discuss about the information in Thailand, but I tried to answer this information. I think that the one thing that we should learn from this information, or try to encourage our audience to follow how can I say that to follow real media, not just citizen, not just social media that they don't have they are not expert, and also sometimes the information is flat everywhere, right? We are living in the flooded information. It make us we are reading so many too much information, then is make sometimes it became a misunderstanding, and even that information is real or is a true story. So that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Mas Yandri, you can also give some answer to that question.
Yes, thank you, Anthony. So I would like to address what Pak Nugroho Santos asked before. So I think in the case of Indonesia, actually we have a law. It's called Electronic Information and Transaction Law, Law number 11 of 2008. So based on that law, the perpetrators of the dissemination of hoax is included in the legal action, so that he or her will be subjected to the sanction according to that law. And I remember that there is one article on that law saying that any person who deliberately spread false or misleading news that result in consumer loss in electronic transaction can be punished with imprisonment for a maximum of 6 years and also a fine of about 1 billion. But if you ask, is it enough to, is it the regulation enough to combat or filter or prevent the hoax? I don't think the answer is no, because if you look at the situation at the time, the numbers of hoax or disinformations every day is increased. According to Cominfo, last year, there were more than 1,000 digital platform hoax. Yeah, it's happened in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, also YouTube. So I think we need put more pay attention how we prevent hoax or how we enact regulation in punishing hoax. But in my opinion, also the inaction of the regulation of the ITE law, or is called Electronic Information and Transaction Law, is quite problematic because this law, to some extent, also treat our democracy process in daily life. So that's why our NGO or GSO and also independent media like Tempo and others always against this law, because to some extent this law also threat the freedom expression in our daily life in Indonesia. And basically, we also have another law. It's called Elimination of Racial and Ethnic Discrimination, law number 40 in 2008, I think. But I don't think so. The both laws is quite effective to prevent or to punish hoax or distribution of fake news in Indonesia. Thank you, Anthony.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mas Yandri. Now we have other question, and two questions are specific to be answered by Carmela. So Deborah will ask her question herself. So maybe Deborah, you can.
Hello.
You can join us. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. My name Deborah from jaring.id. What I get from this webinar is how journalists can tackle the disinformations, is doing investigative reporting and also fact check. And what I want to ask is for Ms. Carmela, how PCIZ count candidate expense for social media, especially for fake news or influencer. Is the data available for public, or do you have a technique for calculating the cost of a social media campaign? I think that's all my question.
Thank you, Deborah. Carmela, but before you answer that question, I would invite Mandep Singh to also ask his question to you. Do you want to ask that by yourself directly, Mr. Mandep Singh? Okay, I'll just read it in. Thank you for panelists for brief presentation. I have one question to Carmela. In your view, how will disinformation and social media impact the result of 2022 Philippine presidential election? Manda from Asia Democracy Network. Carmela, the time is yours.
Thank you for all those questions. I would like to briefly contribute to the first question, because the study I cited earlier on the study that looked into the networks of disinformation in the 2019 election had a very specific suggestion in addressing hoaxes. So we've seen how platforms have focused on content regulation, right? So they look at influencers of so-called fake news, and they take these accounts down. But this study actually cautions against regulating content, because there is a danger that if there's abuse, we could compromise the liberal principles of free speech and tolerance. So what it actually suggested was to look into process regulation, and that's where we looked at the involvement of civil societies, of institutions in government to ensure transparency in the decision making around social media. So that's why campaign finance, again, is a very important factor in fighting disinformation. Certainly, the Commission on Election in the Philippines has a big role to play in making sure that the problems are addressed. Deborah, thank you for the question. I did talk about the challenge of monitoring influencers, because obviously if they pay ads on Facebook, we can monitor that through a tool. But how do we know that an influencer is paid? Because anyone can just freely endorse someone on Facebook, and that's free speech. That's precisely the problem. It's very interesting because in the Philippines right now, there's a big brouhaha over a celebrity interviewing Bongbong Marcos. And she's a famous celebrity. She's an influencer. She's getting a lot of flack on social media right now, because in that interview posted on YouTube, she's being criticized for not asking the right questions on the former senator. So, but again, when we're in monitoring influencers, for example, we really have to be creative. Unless they admit that they were paid, it's hard to prove that influencers are paid. It's similar to bribery. It will take both camps to admit that someone was bribed and someone bribed someone. But there are some tricks that we're still trying to learn ourselves. For example, Facebook allows us to examine, for example, whether a group change its name. We found out, for example, that there are many seemingly harmless groups. They just distribute memes, they distribute photos of cats, they distribute quotes, and they would earn following based on this content. So it's fun, it's harmless, it's not political. So a lot of people like these pages. And through Facebook tools, we are able to see if these kinds of pages, for example, change their topics. And we've seen, in fact, that there are groups like these which turn into support groups for particular candidates. So in that sense, there are ways to go about it, but it's not going to be easy, and we admit that. We're trying to collaborate with academics to see how else we can monitor influencers on social media. Looking at the history of the influencers, for example, is another thing. The candidate attended her wedding, or are there prior connections between? So it's hard to make conclusions, but sometimes what we can do is just to cite the obvious. And I would like to say that this is a problem also before social media, when, for example, shows on TV would put so much focus on a particular candidate, for example, right? So this is also a problem on traditional media before. It's a problem repeated on social media. We are sitting down with some academics to be able to capture this better for the elections. And then the other question, I hope that satisfied your question. Hi, Mandeep. Thank you for the question. How will disinformation and social media impact the result of the 2022 Philippine presidential elections? There is already right now an understanding of how big social media will impact elections in the Philippines. And yes, access to social media may not be universal in the Philippines. There are still areas where access to the internet is problematic. But then again, we know that there's Facebook free data, what we call that again, where they can access content on social media without having to have communication plans. Also, when I did my master's on political communication, this was during the 2016 elections. I was studying political communication in the UK. I looked into the power of social media because I wanted to understand its power. When there are actually so many voting communities that are not connected to the internet. What I found out was the intermedia agenda setting principle, which means that yes, traditional media, even today, remains the primary source of information among voters, but the influence of content on social media, on traditional media, is also very apparent. So in my study, this was 2016 elections, for example, one TV network, about 13%, I think, less than 15% of all of its election coverage cited a social media post. So that's how powerful social media is. And we're all only talking about very obvious citations of social media posts in the election stories. We're not talking, my study wasn't able to capture, of course, but I strongly suspected that there were many other election stories based on social media posts, but were not identified in the reports. So that just emphasizes just how powerful social media has been and will be in the 2022 elections.
Thank you so much, Carmela. Now we have other two questions. Two participants would like to ask the question himself, and I will give the first chance to Ferdi from University of Indonesia. You can ask your question directly to the speakers. Are you with us, Ferdi? I'll just ask his question then. What should be the ideal relationship between media and politics? How can mainstream media, TV, newspaper, radio survive in the era of disruption? And how do the collaboration mechanism between older and new social media oppose disinformation? Ashanti, perhaps you want to answer that question firstly?
Sorry, can you repeat again the questions, please?
What should be the ideal relationship between media and politics? How can mainstream media, TV, newspaper, radio survive in the era of disruption? How do the collaboration mechanism between the older TV, radio, newspaper, and newer media, social media, media-based internet oppose disinformation?
Okay, so I think the ideal relationship between the media with the politics or the political actor is quite clear. So as a journalist, we should need independence. I think that's the key element to provide the good quality of journalism, because if we bias in reporting or too close with our source from political parties, I don't think we can write or produce the good quality of journalism work. So I think so. Of course, we need to close with our source. We need to make a lobby to get inside information from what happened in the political parties or what happened in the political process in our parliament, for example. But we still need independency, and we need to make a distance between we as a journalist and also from the political party or political actors. And so for the collaborations, Yeah, we haven't seen a collaboration from different platforms at the moment. So what happened in Indonesia context now, we have a same platform, for example, media online or print media. But I think it's quite interesting to develop another collaboration with radio or also with the televisions. We had experience before, I think in 2018 or 2017, when we collaborate with CNN. But at the time, I don't think we collaborate for the CNN TV, just only for the CNN online media. But it's quite interesting to develop collaborate with other platforms of the media. I think we can maximize our resource to get a broader audience, how we disseminate and how we debunk hoax or also fake news. I think that's all, Anthony.
Thank you, Mas Yandri. Carmela, could you also please comment to that question?
I agree 100% with Yandri that a free and independent media is very important during elections. And I realized that I've covered elections for so many years also, and we've come to rely on the candidates and the campaign teams for our stories, right? In fact, the criticism in the Philippines is that a lot of our campaign stories are driven by the events of the candidates, and this really doesn't help the voters. We should, again, we need to be constantly reminded that when we put out stories, it should inform the voters so that they can vote intelligently in the precincts. I think that's why your independence as a journalist is very important when you cover elections, and you should keep asking yourself if what you're writing about or if this particular soundbite really needs to be, reported. There are very big issues that we need to report on. We need to look into the track record of candidates to inform the voters. And I think healthy relationships with candidates, if they know that you are fair, that you're just doing your job, when they get to know you better, and they will look at your record of reporting, they will recognize that, and they will welcome you in the campaign so that they can help you in completing your stories. With regard to relationship with netizens, with social media, for example, yes, disinformation has been such a big problem, and that's something we really need to fight. But let's not also forget why social media is also very helpful to societies. Remember Arab Spring, but basically it allows people who otherwise don't have access, don't have voice, and don't have access to the mainstream media to reach out to people they need to reach out to. It's our role as journalists, for example, to make sure that we continue to engage and we continue to reach out to the public. I think it's a question that will be asked later also, but there's a lot of viral posts, for example, that we see on social media, right? And my study looked into this as well, reporting when the reporters have treated social media as if it's a beat. So anything and everything they write about are based on posts on social media. I think there's a good reminder about this habit that we ourselves, yes, we see these posts as representation of public opinion, which is very important in our coverages of elections. We have to highlight the public, the voters, instead of the candidate. But it's very important for us, for example, to verify that the posts we are actually quoting are from real people and they're not from trolls. And that goes to our very basic responsibility, which is verification. So we also need to verify when we quote these opinions on social media that these are people who are actually real.
Thank you, Carmela. Please, could you also contribute to that discussion about the collaboration between, let's say, the traditional media to the new media, and also what should the relationship between media and also politics should be?
Okay. I do agree with our colleagues here, Carmela and Yandri. I think like I was a political journalist like before, like I have been like working in Parliament House and the government house for at least 12 years. So the thing that I always did it when I was a younger journalist is, you know, stay away from politicians, and we and keep the relationship as colleague, not friends. If we stay close, that Yandi said, we cannot criticize them or investigate them when they have like a problem or they do something wrong or they did corrupt. So my experience that when I was younger, when I just started to be a political journalist at the newspaper, at political newspaper, like one politicians give us like a big gift, like at that time, like back to 15 years ago, is a camera, this camera to give us for like a new year in a new year party. So one group of journalists took them, but some group didn't took them. And what happened to that? Like after that, we have a big problem, like talking about like corruption. It seemed like a journalist did corrupted by themselves, right? So because you took like the gift is high price from politicians, and later on when that person have a problem in the Parliament House, like the journalist who took the gift could not criticize them, and then got scared to do their jobs. So that I think the relationship and gift from like people who has power are important for people who qualification for journalists. So there for the misinformation, I do agree with Carmela that like, okay, social media has pros and cons. So like during election, like in the last 2 years, there were a lot of parties use social media to participate, to inform their fans or their supporters directly. So, it seemed like they didn't use mainstream media anymore. Like mainstream media at that time, like in the last 2 years, I think mainstream media had been following some candidates, like because they didn't care about the mainstream media or journalists or alternative media anymore. They have their own platform to communicate with their supporters. So my concern is sometimes the information from the candidates, you know, they have no fact check. They just send direct to their audience or their supporter. Like sometimes they encourage their supporter to to attack another parties or attack another candidates. Is, you know, negative negative things, right? So I think one thing that just came up to me from the question: should we collaborate between other kind of media? I think different medias, they have their own natures. But I think one thing that happened in Thailand, now that there are so many alternative media like happen in Thailand, occur in Thailand, but the founder of some website like move from mainstream media to be founder of alternative media. I think they have their own they have their own nature, but they have background of journalism. So I think the corporate, I don't think that should be the long term. I think it should be just short term, and to work together and like to just get to know together. And I don't think it should be the good idea. So for me now, but one thing that I just it just come up to me, and that I got question from the earlier, that how should we work together in Southeast Asia, like as a network. I like back to 3 years ago, I think back to 3 years ago, we used to have SIPA, which based in Thailand. That SIPA can like set up something to help journalists in Southeast Asia, and like try to support journalists in Southeast Asia, and from any platform, from any media. So I think that would be a good idea if we can recover like some organization like SIPA or something like that to help each other in as a network in Southeast Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Wiz. We have two more questions. This is the last two questions. I will invite Rendra and Christiana to ask their question themselves. Rendra, could you please briefly ask your question? Pak Rendra?
You hear my voice?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to address my question, especially for this for the second presenter. I think Mr. Adi, right?
Yandri,
I don't misunderstood the presentation. You present Tempo telling about Tempo's effort related to fact-checking to deal with the hoaxes. I appreciate that. However, in Tempo's reporting, Tempo often presents news reflected in the titles, news, and the illustration provocatively, that are, according to my opinion, are in line with hoaxes. The question is, what kind of fact-checking does Tempo want to mention for the public? It seems that the fact-check carried by Tempo tend to be based on the interest of the Tempo company itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Rendra. I think I'll give the floor to Mas Yandri directly to answer that question before we.
Yes, thank you, Pak Rendra. So basically, what we deliver to the public is based on public interest, not based on our interests. So I just want to give you an illustration. So we have several years to accommodate or to propose an idea what will be the cover story in the next week, or what is the topics should be written for our Tempo newspaper headline. And so we did our reporting to get the information and so also to the facts. And sometimes we also discuss our facts and our information, not only in our newsroom within the editors, but also we have a internal ombudsman. So the internal ombudsman in Tempo also play a vital role to see whether or not our journalism work is not good or not. So, for example, also the readers or also the audience can send critics to the Tempo's newsroom. Once the critics we receive, usually the ombudsman, our internal ombudsman, will have a regular meeting, and they will check whether or not Tempo's articles or Tempo's photos or Tempo's illustration breaks the law or not. So I think it's an important part. So of course, as a media, we cannot accommodate all public interests, especially for their political preference. But what we did in our newsrooms, basically, we try to stick to the facts. We try to stick to the facts, not without. So my point is, just try to get the facts and verify every process in gathering that facts. So I think that's the important part. So this element also has been conducted not only by the reporters in the field, but also for every level of our journalists in our newsroom. So I think that's from me for Pak Rendra.
Thank you, Mas Chandri, for the clarifying response. I invite right now Christiana.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Can you? Can you?
We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. I have a question to Mas Yandri from Tempo. I have two questions. The first question is about what kind of the collaboration do you have to the media? As your explanation, the answer the question from the panelists about the collaboration with the political party, but you don't have the political party collaboration, but you have the media collaboration. So here I would like to know about what kind of the collaboration do you have to the media. And the second question is about how can Tempo collect it or get data for fake news? Thank you.
Okay, this is also a question for Mas Yandri. There are two questions, Mas Yandri. The first one is, how do you get data for fake news? And secondly, the collaborations that you have with other media.
Yes, as I previously said before, that we have a lot of collaboration since I think 5 or 6 years ago. First, we have experience during Panama Papers investigation with the others media around the globe, and also the current investigation project is the Defense and Files. I think it's happened last year. So, but it started I think in 2016. So when Tempo also have collaboration with the local media. So because we want to improve their capability or their skills in investigating projects. So that's why since 2016, we open like a fellowship for the local media. So based on their proposal, they can send their proposal, and then we select fellows that so we will consider and we will make sure that the story that proposed by the fellows will be quite interesting and have a powerful impact to the society. So it started since 2016, and with the others media from other countries like Malaysia, Kini, we collaborate to investigating people smuggler and trafficking, human trafficking. We not only sharing the data, but also we doing investigation or reporting together in the field at the time. And it also happened when we did investigation project with the reporter from Taiwan to see what happened at the time. It's basically we try to uncovering the slavery in the Taiwanese ship. So we try to digging the story by collecting the data from both parties, from the Taiwan and also from Indonesia. And I still remember that the collaboration at the time, as it took probably around 6 or 7 months before we produced the collaborating project to be the cover story. And the last questions about the how we work or how we collect the data for the fact checking. So it's quite technically, but the first step is basically we do preliminary research to ascertain whether the statements or claim has been reported by the media. So we study how the media reports on the issue and what the context of the statement. After confirming to the claim, was indeed widely circulated in the community or was actually made by the public official, we will try to contact the relevant parties. If the source of the claim can be contacted, we will ask what evidence is the basis for the claim. This assertion is important to that we understand the context of the statement to be verified. So the next step is to conduct research to find all public sources, especially data that are open and accessible to everyone, so that can be accessed about the claim or statement. So all available sources will be explored, and if used, will be listed in the article so that the audience can immediately check their validity. So I think it's part of the transparency, how we work and the methods that we use to clarify the issue. And after all research is completed, if necessary, the editors of our fact-checking will interview competent expert in the field related to the claim. So the interview is important to ascertain whether the editorial conclusion regarding to the claim are strong enough or not. And from our experience, of course, sometimes we have difficulties to find the facts or to collect the data. So that's why we divide it into 5 categories, I think. So if based on all available sources, if we can prove the statement is accurate, it will be correct. Or also the second one is the partial true. So the partial true is it means that based on all publicly accessible sources, this statement is partially true. But sometimes we cannot also cannot prove the statement or cannot be concluded to be accurate or not. So in our article, we put the title is unproven of the statement. And if from the available sources, the statement use correct facts and data, but the methods of delivery of our conclusion is wrong and leads to the wrong interpretation, we will put on the title is the false information. And the last one is mislead. So based on the evidence, this statement is totally inaccurate. I think that's why that's how we judge or we consider every single claim that we want to try to check in the field. every day. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Mas Yandri. Now we are nearing the end of our discussion, but beforehand, dear participant, could you please kindly filling out the evaluation form that you can find in the chat box. And now I'll give each speakers 3 minutes for closing remarks and also to sum up and also highlight things that that's really important that we can also take from this discussion. I'll firstly give the opportunity to Wiz. You're still unmute, Wiz.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you for the organization, the Indonesian Association for Media Development, to invite me to this panel. You know, I feel like I got a lot of encouragement from our colleagues here, like especially the colleagues from Indonesia is like doing fact checks is, you know, is make the society to understand more the misinformation that try to destroy the information of people in other societies. I think that the good way of doing as a journalist. I thank you for both of our colleagues here that share your experience and share your thoughts, your works with us. So, and thank you for some questions that are asking me about the disinformation in Thailand. So I think if we now is like became in the new world, like if we look back to 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we didn't have like social media at that time. We have never expected that you know the social media gonna like be a part of mainstream media. To me, I have never expected. I still remember we used just MSN from Hotmail. That was the first platform that we using for communication online. And after that, like other things come up to our society, especially journalism world. So I think it's time to be survive in this era, in this information situation, and especially in the working in the information operation team, like for example with Thailand. So it is hard to work with them, and it's hard to be brave, and it's hard to do our job, but we still keep going and fighting, and you know, thank you.
Thank you so much, Wiz. Carmela, could you also please sum up in 3 minutes and also highlighting the message that you want all of the participants bring and think about?
Thank you, Anthony. In my presentation, I focused on the content that we've been doing for PCIJ. In closing, I'd like to highlight solidarity among journalists, and Annie mentioned this during the opening. And as we have seen, Wiz benefited from the support she's received from the audience. Solidarity is really very important. That's also a lesson we learned in the Philippines. You know, it's very hard when you get all of these hate messages in your inbox when you do big stories. And sometimes you just keep to yourself and try to be strong about all of these things. But it also affects you, you know, emotionally. So it can be a burden also. what we've discovered, it's really very helpful when you talk about it with your colleagues. So you are able to process all of this abuse that you get on social media. So that's really important. Now I don't check unknown messages on Facebook and on Twitter anymore. It's also interesting. I think we learn to fight this, not just disinformation, but attacks against journalists. I remember, I think just last week, my one of my mentors, she turned her Facebook post public only recently. So she does post about political events, but it used to be shared only to her friends. She shared it publicly recently, and she was telling me, Carmela, why do I see a lot of poop emojis in the comments? And it really bothered her, didn't know what to do about it. And she said, you see that the comments are not really asking legitimate questions, and we talked about it, and that's really the purpose, the objective of the purveyors of disinformation and the trolls, right, is to take you away from your job, to even silence you. You know, I remember when I was covering Marawi siege, anything remotely critical of the war effort, for example, I would get all of these attacks on social media. But I realized then that, you know, all of this time spent fighting with trolls, if they are trolls, I would just use it working on stories to be published on the website, instead of, you know, spending all of these hours engaging them. And then finally, very quickly, I'd like to highlight the responsibility of the candidates themselves. We talk about disinformation. I think the candidate should also set an example, or at least set rules for their own followers, that, you know, if a particular candidate supporters have been abusing other candidates, they should tell their supporters very publicly that those actions are not acceptable. I think we should also take them to account, that they should not tolerate, that in fact they should call out supporters that they have who abuse other parties, other voters, or other candidates. I think that's very important. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to this panel.
Thank you so much, Carmela. Now we move to Mas Yandri. Mas Yandri, please.
Thank you, Anthony. Before I make my closing statement, I just want to respond the questions in the chat box from Isachun about the books or articles to understand more on the topic. So I think in the context of Indonesia, you can refer to one of the researchers. Is called his name is Rolf Stepsel from the ANU, Canberra. He actively monitoring and doing research in Indonesia related to the media, and also to how political polarization affect to democracy in Indonesia regarding to the hoax and also disinformation. I didn't remember the articles because so many articles he wrote about Indonesia, so you can just Googling on the internet. Just Googling Rostepsel, and then you can see his articles. And another thing is, I think one of our colleague probably, I think she will be our speaker next week, Anita Wahid. He will be doing PhD on this topic in Australia, because I heard that she will doing investigating how hoax and also disinformation affected voters' political preference in Indonesian election 2020. So if you want to hear about more deeper or more deep about this topic, you can also ask Anita Wahid, I think next week. So for my closing statement, I just want to make it short, Anthony. So based on our discussion today, I think it's time for us to winning back public trust in the mass media. So in order to winning that public trust, first, I think we as a journalist, we need to look at back what happened in our newsroom. So we must ensure that the fact checking and also the verification process of every single of information are being integral part in the newsroom. So I think this process must be transparent and also should be discussed enough not only within reporters, but also from reporters to editors. And the second issue also the independency, as we previously discussed. Without independency, it's hard for media to produce a good quality of journalistic works and to win back the people trust. So once we fail to maintain this spirit, we never win against hoax or disinformation. So as a result, our democratic process in the context of Indonesia or other countries like in Thailand, also in Philippines, will continue to decline. I think that's all from me. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you so much, Mas Yandri. Okay, we are now at the end of our session. I'm not going to sum up again what our distinguished speakers have already gave us, but I think all of the message are really encouraging in this troubling time of disinformation era. I want to close the discussion today with what we usually do, photo together. So would you please help us, Mas Viko, to print screen?
Please wait. I will add all speakers and moderator. Please open the camera.
So are we in formal mode or in informal mode, Mas Viko?
Sorry?
Are we in formal pose or informal pose?
Free pose.
Free pose.
Okay, on my count. 1, 2, 3, smile. Wait. Sorry. Once more. 1, 2, 3. Smile, everyone. Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mas Yandri, Mbak Eni, Wins, and also Carmela, and thank you all the participants who has been listening to the speakers' presentations for more or less 2 hours. Hopefully, we always safe in this current troubling time of COVID-19 pandemic. Stay healthy, and also stay healthy from the disinformation. Goodbye. See you in another.
See you. Bye bye. ขอบคุณค่ะ Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye, Carmela and everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Ni.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Looking forward for the collaboration. Sama-sama, Mbak Eni.
I hope my story, like, I can make you guys understand more Thailand situation.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
I followed you on Twitter, so I will.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I hope the situation improves.
Okay. Thank you. I will follow you back.